What up, y'all? I am back, and some of y'all may not have known this about me because I don't talk about my work life much outside of what I do on YouTube for, I believe, it are obvious reasons. But I used to be an educator. I still consider myself an educator, but let me, for this video's purpose, or at least for this point that I'm trying to make now, I'm going to use the term former educator, right? And I'll get into why I don't think that simply because I'm no longer teaching mainstream schools and public schools that I am not or no longer an educator. But why I pretty much gave up on teaching in mainstream schools, public schools, even charter schools as well, like the traditional schooling system, right? Why I stopped working in that field, there's many of teachers who have felt the way that I feel that I'm going to say in this video. Before I even get into my thoughts, I want to say, and this is going to be a rarity because y'all know how I feel about TikTok, or you should know how I feel about TikTok. Y'all know I don't like that place. That place is a web of lies. But I will say, every single video that I've seen from a former teacher or a teacher who was literally on their last days of being an educator, every single video that you've seen, right? Maybe I've had some, upon editing this, I'll have some, shown in the video here, right? Every single one of them were teachers that I felt were telling the truth, that I could relate to. And these weren't people that I taught side by side with, like at the same school. I don't know anybody, any of these teachers, ones that you may have seen, ones you might be seeing in this video, except for the one you're looking at speaking to now. But obviously the ones that, are other clips, I don't know any of these people. But the things that they said that was an issue, I can 100%, again, as a quote former educator, can say that is 100% true. And the crazy thing is, these are teachers are not even who are not in the same state as me as well. A number of these teachers are teachers from all over the country, all over the United States. There are teachers from the South, teachers from the West Coast, teachers from the East Coast like me, Northeast if you want to be even more specific. Yeah, teachers from the Midwest. There are teachers from all over this nation who are coming out and saying the same things, right? Or former teachers saying the same things. Now, TikTok being TikTok, people like to get on trends and they will lie and make up stories and say that they experienced something someone else said that they experienced, that they may be lying because they saw someone else say it, which that person may be lying because they saw someone else say. It's TikTok. Shit like that happens on that platform. But me being a great judge of character, I'm looking at all the videos that I've seen of the teachers, and I know for a fact that they're not lying. They're not jumping on a trend. Yeah, sure, it may seem trendy to get on TikTok or to get on social media as a former educator and then detail your horror stories as to why you no longer work within the public school system or just traditional school system in general, right? But nah, the only thing trend about it is, like, you see a teacher say it and you feel inspired to tell your story. Other than that, all the stories though that's being told, like the story you're about to hear me tell and everybody else, it's true as true. It's true as day. It's true as night. It's true as true. As I said, it's as true as black as this shirt, right? That I'm wearing right now. For those who are actually watching the video, right? But it's true. It's the God honest truth. It's the hand to God honest truth. I truly believe that. I know that's the fact for me, and I don't believe that all the other people that I've seen are lying about it. their experiences, right? Not saying that teachers don't lie. Trust me, I know some teachers who be lying about shit. But again, the stuff that I've seen people share, I'm saying it's true. So if you've ever seen a video, and you might even direct me to some, you might even, if you can share a link in the comment section below, I don't know if you can as a commenter, but if you find me on social media, you share a video with me and be like, hey, how about this teacher? You think they're telling the truth? I will watch that video. I probably already saw it because I've seen many of these videos, but I would watch it or watch it again and tell you straight up, yeah, I think this is true because I went through this situation. I also can tell it's true because, and hear me out when I say this, I'm not going to cry in this video. None of this shit that I've experienced, as horrible as I experienced some shit as an educator, none of it made me cry. Not to say like I'm some big tough toughie. It was, yeah, it made me angry. There's stuff that made me sad, but none of it made me cry. It's just what it is. I'm not someone that forces myself to cry, but I also am getting better. Let me put it that way. I'm getting better at not forcing myself not to cry when, you know, that feeling comes up. But to God's honest truth, again, the experiences I've had, although I did have a strong emotional reaction to stuff, again, angry, sadness, and even happiness, none of it actually made me cry, you know? But the people that I have seen in tears about stuff, these are genuine tears. These were not crisis actors. These are not paid actors. These were like genuine tears from former educators who, you know, they spent a good portion of their life or even just years. Even if it's not a good portion of their life, it's still years that they spent in this life and, you know, doing this thing. And for them to give up on it or to, you know, I'm gonna say give up on it, but I think that term gets a bad rap. I don't think it's always a bad thing to give up. But for them to give up on it or to change paths, it's a very emotional one. I can tell you, when I decided that I was going to go in a more or leave the more traditional education route. Again, it was kind of a tough decision for me. Again, not one that made me emotional to the point where I had super strong feelings like I had to express, but nonetheless, it was a tough decision in a way where it was like, and it was tough for me. I can't speak for the other teachers. I am going to try to assume why it's tough for them. But don't take my assumption as their answer. That you should go to the source being them, if you want a concrete explanation as to why they had the emotional reactions that they had when detailing their stories. But as far as me, the reason why it was tough, again, because, yeah, like I've seen other teachers or former teachers state, you kind of do feel like you're giving up on, like, people that you care about, meaning the youth that you've helped shape and mold and things of that nature, right? People who look up to you. And a lot of these schools, a lot of them abuse that. They abuse that notion to try to get people to stay within shitty schools, to try to get people to stay within shitty positions within these schools. They use that guilt against these educators. I'm going to go in more depth about that later on. But as far as with me, again, you kind of do get that feeling of, yeah, you are giving up on the youth. You think about times where, and this happens to me all the time still, where I would run into someone, I'm going to call them a kid, but they're adults now, right? It's how long I've been an educator, right? And I might not look old because I'm not that old, but I've been doing this thing for some time now. You know what I'm saying? It's been like, I want to say almost 15, 16 years of me doing this, by the way. And again, I'm really great at not fucking telling my personal life online. So a lot of y'all are like, I didn't know you was doing this for that long. Yes. You know what I'm saying? But it will hit you when you're out and about and you see former students of yours, whether they're grown adults, teenagers, or even the children, right? They're still kids, but they're, a bit older than when you first saw them when they were in, fourth or fifth grade or so, or whatever, right? And they tell you how much they either miss you or how much you've had a positive influence on their life, right? Or you can see your positive influence happening. This happens to me a lot. I'm not bragging, but one of the community center that is literally in my neighborhood, there's a former student that works there. Every time I see dude, it's love. You know what I'm saying? When I first saw him as an adult years ago, he's still a young adult, but when I first saw him as when he was first getting into adulthood, he let me know how I was a big inspiration for him getting that job at the community center, working with the youth, because of how much of a positive influence I was on him and his peers at the time. He wanted to work within the youth, and he's been at that community center being a positive influence ever since. It's the only job he's ever had, and he's still there. Young, 20, I want to say he could be 23 now or so, but got that job when he was 18, still there. A couple of months ago, another student, I've known this girl since she was, again, probably 5th, 6th grade, I believe, when I first, her 5th or 6th grade year, right? It was 6th grade. Since she was a 6th grader, right? Since she was in middle school. I've known her, I've had her for all 3 years, by the way, of middle school, 6, 7, 8. And I went to her graduation and everything. Middle school graduation and everything, right? Her and her twin brother, right? She has a job now, and she works for I'm not going to detail everyone's business, but she works for one of the services here that the public transportation system out here provides, right? So she works for one of those little subgroups that they provide, that they have, right? Great paying job, if you ask me, especially out here in Boston when you're going to need that type of money. So she's making good money. She did tell me the last time we spoke that she was trying to actually get into being a bus driver to make a lot more money. But she's another one who told me how much that, and she was saying that, yeah, she was like, I remember I used to give you a hard time and stuff, but you was always so patient with me, and you was always cool and everything and all this other stuff, right? Like, you was always someone that, myself and then all their people, she started just naming all the her peers again that we looked up to. So stories like that, you get these stories and then you see these faces all the time when you're out and about or from time to time, right? These things will affect you as an educator, and these are the highs of being an educator, right? Working within the public school system, or even if you, again, worked for a private school or a charter school. I've never worked for a private school. I've only worked for public, and I did a little bit of time at a charter school. Other than that, I've never worked private, but I'm sure the experiences, no matter the type of schooling, it's the same. If the students really like you, if the teachers, even if the parents really like you, and they see you out and about, it's always gonna be love. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of them thankfully understand why I made the decision that I made. You know, all of them honestly understood. I've explained my decision to folks, and all of them would say things like, well, they lost a great one, they lost a great teacher, or, you know, they're losing great teachers like yourself, and, oh, I understand why you're leaving, right? No one has ever tried to make me feel guilty for why I feel the way I feel. It was very much affirming my thoughts, very much thanking me for my service and all this other stuff. And again, it wasn't like the end of the road. It's not like, oh, I'm no longer a teacher, I'm no longer teaching your kids, so we can't talk. No, again, whenever they see me, it's all love still, you know? So, yeah, you know, stuff like that, it's going to eat at you, and it's going to make you feel away. But also me, I consider what I've done on YouTube for years, what I do with my other YouTube channel, I've considered what I do in general outside, even within my books as an author, right? I still consider that in a way educating people, right? Even though I write fiction, there's always something I feel people can learn from the stories that I've made up, right? I don't go into those situations trying to teach people a lesson. You know, they're far different from these videos. And even with these videos, there's still an element of me just detailing my story or detailing my opinion. I'm not trying to necessarily teach people something, but I always do go into every opportunity trying to teach people something, because personally speaking, I love teaching people. I love just teaching people anything, right? Exposing people to information they might not know about, right? One of the best comments I always remember when I first started YouTube was when people were to watch my videos, they would always say, it was one of the more common topics. People always say things like, I didn't know about, you know, this thing that you educated me on, or I never saw it from this angle, but you helped me see it from this different side, right? Or you at least exposed me to a different way of thinking about whatever you were talking about. I love comments like that. Again, that's my way of giving back as an educator. So yeah, because of that, I did feel in a way bad for leaving the schools or whatever, but I didn't feel as bad as the others who were in my position who left and I'm assuming felt like there is now an empty void in their life because they don't know what to do, because again, they spent 17 plus years or so, or even 7 or even 5, 2 or 3 even years of their life being a teacher and being an educator, and now it's like, well, I can't do this anymore. Like, the pros do not outweigh the cons, and now I don't know what to do next within my life. I was blessed enough, again, to have this platform, to have other outlets, to have a passion outside of teaching in general, for me to say I would just continue doing the things that I was doing before I started teaching, while I was teaching, and now doing it after being a teacher within traditional schooling. But I know not everyone has that. And for those who might be watching this right now and you don't have that, you're on YouTube right now. Maybe because you don't have a job. Not trying to make fun of you, but maybe because you're searching for, a way of doing things and having a passion. My honest answer from one teacher to another is explore. I think this is the perfect time for you to explore yourself outside of just being the educator. But if you are someone like me who likes to educate people, who like to expose people to new perspectives, new information, you don't have to stop teaching simply because you no longer work at the school or for the school system that you once did. you can still teach. You know, we are on the internet, man. Like you can run your own courses about whatever you feel strongly that you want to teach. The teaching doesn't stop simply because you no longer pull into a building anymore. The building could be your house, but you no longer wake up earlier every morning and pull into a building that isn't your house and go in and you clock in there. You know, you're having lesson plans there and all this other stuff. You're in teacher's lounge. That's not, your teacher lounge can be your room now. It can be your living room. It could be wherever you want to make it now. So if that's something that you're like, I can't just move on from being an educator, then don't move on from being an educator. Be an educator in a different way than you were the past however many long you was working within that school system. So that's that. That's my advice for those folks who might have issue. Like if I were to have a conversation with the various people that I saw share their stories, that's the advice. The advice I just gave is the advice I would give to all of them, right? If they haven't found anything outside of being an educator and they're still struggling to do so, explore, number one. If you don't want to explore anything else outside of that, continue being an educator. Just do it in what this modern sense, of education is now. Finding something that you're passionate about, not necessarily something that you're told you got to teach, but finding something you're passionate about and teaching that, holding Zoom sessions, YouTube channel, all this other stuff. There's a plethora of ways you can do this. You can still be an educator. If you want to still educate the youth, you can do that online as well. There's YouTube for children. Isn't there like a TikTok for children as well? So make videos, education videos for the children, for the youth. Go to your local community centers. Hold courses and things of that nature, right? Talk to them. There's ways in which you can still scratch that education itch. It's what I'm saying, right? But now on to my reasons as to why I stopped working within. I no longer am an educator once again. And for those, again, I'm only using that term because I still believe I'm an educator, but I'm only saying that just to simplify why I no longer teach within the public school system. It all falls down to appreciation or lack thereof, and time and support or lack thereof. And I mean lack thereof of all three. Lack thereof of appreciation, although there are, again, moments where students will appreciate you. But lack of time when it comes to actually getting things done, but still being held responsible for for everything running smoothly, or just time in general, the lack of time in general, and lack of support, meaning lack of support from other educators that you work with, and most definitely, which I think is the worst, the lack of support from the parents, who I'm gonna say some shit about. I'm not gonna name names, but I'm definitely gonna say some shit that's gonna get y'all to want me to get fired. But guess what? I can't get fired from the school. You want to know why? Because I fired myself when I walked out. So what you gonna do about lack of time, right? Just because I know I said that. I forget. I wanted to follow my order, but we're here now. What I mean by the lack of time, you're a teacher. Obviously, you're teaching throughout the school day. There are things that happen. You are awarded a lunch like any other job out there, or any other job that's operating or seemingly operating on an ethical scale. You are awarded a lunch break. But there are times as an educator you're going to have to take your lunch break either later, which that never happens. Meaning that taking it later simply just means you don't take it at all. Later as in like later on in the day when you're not even at school anymore, when school is over, meaning you're now taking your lunch break when you're at home, which it's not a lunch break anymore. So that's why I said you don't take it at all. It goes. Time, lack of time, I say it's number 2. It should be number 3 as my number 3 issue, because it's really not a big deal. I think if you're going into the field of education, you should know, you should be fine with the idea that you're going to wake up hella early. Unless you live like down the street from the school, which was a luxury a number of the teachers that I worked with did. I didn't have that luxury the last few years of my teaching, the last years of my life as an educator. Therefore, I had to get up super early. I had to skip breakfast, right? I didn't skip showers because no way, Jose. I had to skip breakfast as far as eating a type of breakfast I would prefer to eat, some good old eggs and all this other stuff. I had to opt for the protein, the protein bars with the protein shakes, or if there was something left in the teacher's lounge, I had to opt for the stale blueberry muffins. Hey, blueberry muffins are still good even stale. That's just me. But I had to opt for stuff like that. The last few years. Over time, when you think about, again, the stuff that you're dealing with, that can not only weigh on you as your body, like as far as your body, well, that can weigh on you mentally. Like, is this really what life is? You know what I'm saying? Again, it's not the worst thing I've ever had to deal with as an educator. I want to make that clear. I don't think that the time aspect was the worst aspect at all. I hate getting up early, even still now. I get up early still because it's a force of habit. When you've been doing this for, 16, 17 years, you're so used to getting up early to the point where, even when you don't work for a school, you still get up early. But now I get up early, and that's what I call my meditation hours. And you need that, especially if you're in the field of education. Problem is, I didn't even have time to do that. And stuff like that is important to me, especially to my mental well-being. And again, I had to look at these things and was like, yeah, all the trouble that is going on right now is not worth me missing this important spiritual, mental practice that I do on a daily, right? Or that I try to do on a daily. None of this, I'm missing out on this. It's not worth missing out on getting a good breakfast, getting nutrient dense food, if you follow a specific way of eating, and you can't necessarily, or it's hard to necessarily cram that in or get that, because again, you have to get up and go, and now you got to eat things that's bite size or handheld, and usually that stuff is the ultra processed stuff that isn't necessarily the best for you. Again, these are things you got to take into account. But again, as far as the time element goes and all that stuff, like me, I always, not even just as an educator, as an individual, I'm always looking for the solution in every problem, right? It's just a part of who I am as a Virgo, right? Virgo sun. We are always looking for the solution to every problem. So yeah, the problem was getting up early and not eating a breakfast that I felt was a healthy one. But it wasn't impossible to find healthier options, even if they were, again, finger food or handheld food, non-cooked food. Again, I can go get protein bars. I can stock up on that. Protein shakes, things of that nature, right? I drink water all the time. So if I didn't want to have a protein shake with a protein bar, I just had a protein bar and had some water. I can drink water throughout the day. I can have some fruit, you know what I'm saying? An apple or something like that, right? Banana, right? These are things where it's like, yeah, I would rather have, again, my eggs and my complimentary pancakes from time to time. You know, the protein ones especially. Even though protein pancakes, to be honest, it's a lie. I love to tell myself to get the protein in. It's whatever. But anyways, I would love to have that breakfast every morning. But you work with what you got. And that's a big part of being an educator is you got to work, especially if you're working in inner city schools. You have to work with what you have. That's just the way of the game. And that's one of the benefits of being an educator, or just, going to these underfunded schools. Even as a student, it's you learn to work with what you have. So that side of it was something I was prepared to do even prior to becoming an educator, which again, that's why I didn't even name it as one of my big issues. And I shouldn't have probably named the time thing. I probably wasted time talking about the time aspect, because my really two big main issues, like I said, is the lack of support that's happening within the school system, and the lack of appreciation. That's where I wanted to start. The lack of appreciation, meaning, again, you will come across students and families of students who are very much will make it known how much they love you and love that what you have done for their life or their child's life, right? You will run into unless you're a fucking horrible teacher, like you were just a terrible individual that shouldn't be teaching at all. It don't matter if you've been teaching for 2 years, 10 years, 17 years. You're going to run into somebody that, you're going to hear these stories. Again, unless you're a horrible individual. Then my advice to you, I don't, I'm not going to tell the people to lie. Not going to tell the students and teachers to lie just so you can feel good. You shouldn't have been a horrible teacher. But anyways, you're going to get that support, which is great. But for the most part, those situations, and like I said, they will happen to you as often as they do. I know I said all the time, but I really mean as often as they do. You know what? Y'all set me up with this terrible, and I'm just gonna say, like, with the worst student here. There's really no protections that I have, because at this point I got the job through a staffing agency, so it wasn't like I was a union teacher, right? So if this kid, there's no type of protections at all, aside from maybe if the staffing agency wanted, and again, it was their discretion, and it wasn't like they had people at the school watching or like a supervisor at the school I can go to. It was literally, I was under the supervision of, the principal. And the principal was never really around all that much because, again, this is a huge school. He wanted to go to, he definitely didn't want to go and constantly be, he was in meetings all the time, so doing principal things, but he definitely did not want to always be around when I was with that student or anyone was with that student because, yeah, like I said, worst student in the school. It was so bad that the principal didn't even want to deal with them. But it wasn't like they could expel him because it's Massachusetts, it's Boston, it's a liberal city, it's all that. The student is a child of an immigrant mother who doesn't speak English, or at least she claims she doesn't speak English. The crazy thing is, and this goes into part of my issues with the parents, there were other teachers there who would tell me all the time how much they spoke English to the mother. But whenever I would try to speak English to her, she would pretend like she doesn't know what the fuck is going on. It got to the point where I would seek out the teachers who told me that they're speaking English to her. I would seek out to them, and none of them spoke Haitian Creole, right? Or at least not all of them did. Some of them did because they were of Haitian descent. But the majority of the ones that I spoke to, that was like, oh, she's cool. She's actually nice. She's speaking English. She speaks English, right? She speaks English just fine. She understands just fine. You just got to speak slow to her. Y'all know how slow I speak. But like, I was doing that, and it's like this woman was either fucking with me or she didn't fuck with me. I think it's both. I think it probably was because she apparently... The crazy thing is, the dude before me, because when I first had experience with this student, I showed up on the dude's last day, essentially, right? So the student's aide, one-to-one aide, on his last day. So I pretty much was walking around shadowing, what he was doing. The kid pretty much had 2 one-to-one aides that day, myself and again the dude that he was with. He warned me about the mother. It was like, she's not going to be cooperative at all. She's going to send him to school when he's really sick. When you send him home, it's always going to be something. The school isn't going to work with you about this situation. And if you hear voices outside, I got the nosiest motherfucking roommates of all time. This is a side tangent. I got the nosiest motherfucking roommates of all time. Instead of watching a video like you're watching a video on YouTube right now, they would rather try to act like they on a fucking phone or whatever the fuck and try to listen into the conversation and be fucking nosy that way. When them niggas is usually in a fucking room. And y'all wonder why I hate it in this motherfucker. But they're usually in their room, or it's not like they can't be in their room having those same conversations, but no, they rather be outside. So please excuse if you are hearing voices outside, and they don't need to be as loud as they need to be, and they definitely don't need to be on the speakerphone. Alright? Y'all probably like, yo, Ernest, you going crazy. I don't hear nothing. I'm glad you're going crazy. I'm still going to keep this in. I'm glad you're not hearing nothing. Now I'm glad you're going crazy. Hopefully you're not going crazy. But I'm glad you don't hear nothing. Because it means even in this shitty ass apartment, the walls are thick enough for you not to hear that bullshit that I'm hearing as I'm detailing my situation. But the nigga don't need to be out there. He just a nosy fuck. Anyways, back to the situation here. Again, dealt with this student. The former aide tried to warn me, and he was on some, you need to get out. Like it was like get out with all the all black cast. It was like, you need to get out, bro. Like, he was keeping it real. So shout out to him, right? He was at least keeping. He was like, you don't stay here for long. He's like, they're gonna tell you the thing that I told you about him getting an aid. He's like, they're gonna tell you things. They're gonna make all these promises. They're gonna try to soften the blow, but he's not worth the trouble. Like, get here, get your money. If you could find something better, find something better. And that's what he did. His mom worked at a high school. He ended up getting a job at the high school that his mom worked at. So shout out to him, right? But he was like, get out, do this for as long as you can, but don't stay here forever. Because they're going to tell you all these things. They're going to give you all these fake promises. And then none of that is going to monasticize. You know what I'm saying? None of that's going to monasticize, whatever that word is, right? None of that's going to come true. It's just word. And he said he's been dealing with that situation for, I think it was like a year and 6 months he was in that situation. I didn't stay that long, by the way. You know what I'm saying? Like, first of all, I heed warnings. When people warn me about stuff, there are rarely times where, you know, someone warned me about something. There have been times when people warn me about something and I was like, man, I ain't gonna listen to y'all niggas. Or, like, they warned me about something and what they warned me about never happened to me. But there are majority of the times when it comes to especially the work that I do, when people warn me about something, especially if they've been there a year or so longer, even if it's like a few months, but they've been there longer than me and they're like warning this is gonna happen or this is liable to happen, yeah, I feel the need to take their word for it. So he was another one I was like, okay, I'm gonna look out for everything he said. He said the same thing. No, he dealt with the same situation where he said he would try to communicate with the mother. He would try to build that rapport with the mom. And the other staffs were just saying like she's how nice she is and how this and that, how she does again speaking English and all that stuff. But with me, it was the only English word she would say is okay. I'm dead serious. The only English word she would say to me is okay. Now, I didn't stick around to see her speak English to the other the other staff who would tell me, that she spoke English. But like I said, there were moments where I was speaking to her and she would just shake her head or just continue to have that look on her face like she don't know what the fuck I'm saying. And then I would call over the same teacher who told me she speaks perfectly English, and she would still continue on the act because she knew that they weren't going to call her out and be like, come on, Miss, her last name wasn't Jones, but I'm just using this as an example. Come on, Miss Jones, you stop playing. We spoke English the other day. They would just be like, they would just sit there and have this look on their face where it's like they want to, like they're looking at her, like they're telling me that just go along with it, right? And that's a problem with a lot of these schools. A lot of the issues that I've again heard from the various TikTok videos that I've seen, or just videos in general that I've seen from former educators, is there's a lot of coddling and what's the other word that I really want to use? But there's a lot of just I'm gonna just use coddling. But although there's another word that I want to use, there's just a lot of just letting people, students and the teachers, and well, not necessarily the teachers at times, yeah, but the parents is what I meant, right? Students and their parents to get away with fuckery. And there's nothing that you as an educator can do. And when I say there's nothing, I mean there is very much damn near close to nothing you can do about that. I can't make the woman speak to communicate to me in English if she doesn't want to communicate to me in English or communicate with me at all. I can call teachers over. I can call teachers to translate whatever she said in Haitian Creole. And then have a translator for someone who, once again, knows how to speak English but doesn't want to speak to me. Or I can try to, and again, like I said, I'm someone that likes to find solutions. I tried to call teachers over, not as a translator, but as a witness that she is playing this game of not necessarily knowing how to speak English, when people have told me, multiple people have told me that this woman knows how to speak English. At the very least has a good grasp on what the English language is and can speak it and understands what you're saying, although she is playing in my face as if she has no idea of what I'm saying. I'm not using big ass words like pontificate or whatever the case. I'm simply just saying, hey, today your son had this incident go on, or your son was sick and he had this situation happen, or in the bathroom we had to change his clothes because this happened. And all of it is going in one ear and out the other because she's pretending not to understand what I'm saying, because she doesn't want to take the responsibility of the day. It's a lot of teachers operate like this, whether they speak English or pretend to speak English, or not, or pretend not to speak English, or if they really don't speak English, right? A lot of parents, this is my biggest issue, a lot of parents don't want the responsibility of being a parent, but want the benefits, the tax benefits of being a parent. They want the teachers to be the ones to teach the child how to tie their shoe, or dress the student appropriately, or to feed the student, teach them how to read, all this other stuff. Of course, yeah, do your job, but also do the job of a parent, teaching the student why they can't, why certain things are unacceptable to do, right? And this student that I had, he was big on grabbing, sexually assaulting, I'm gonna say, although he was a kid, but he was big on grabbing the breast and butts of female student, well, not female students, but female staff members. It was me and a female staff member who worked in the classroom that he worked in. Again, this is special ed, so yes, there is a bit of grace, but y'all gonna see in a future video that I upload about that BAFTA situation. I personally don't believe that people with any type of special needs should not be held accountable for their actions. There is an explanation for it, no doubt, but to not be held accountable is not the equality that everyone claims that they want for these people, or that these individuals claim that they want. And it's not the precedent that we should set. So yeah, I was the individual who would get on him whenever I caught him, or was told, because many female students, whenever they saw me go off on him, not students again, but teachers, would tell me, yeah, there was a moment where I was just walking the hallway and all of a sudden somebody just grabs my butt and it's him, or this student, or this teacher. Yeah, I gotta watch, even if she's wearing something as, like this shirt that I'm wearing right now. I gotta watch, and this was let's just say a thicker woman. Ooh, but nah, for real, this was a woman who was, let's just say, fully developed. So it don't matter what she wore, whether it could be a long sleeves t-shirt or a sweater. It wasn't like she would have to wear layers on top of layers on top of layers on top of layers. And who the fuck is gonna do that in order for her breast and her, her hips and her butt not to be, I guess, exposed, right? And no woman should have to deal with that crap simply because they on the thicker side. That don't mean that it's okay for anybody to just grab at their body part because it's out there. So I would get on the student about that, and I would talk to his mom about it. The same mom who would pretend like she don't know what the hell I'm saying. Again, you can't do anything about these situations. It's like women who are teachers are forced to deal with the sexual harassment, because you will have parents who don't want to admit to their child either being a creep. They don't want to admit to either maybe some things going on within the home where that child thinks it's okay, whether that child is on the spectrum, has special needs or not. They don't want to admit to that type of exposure happening, and there was a lot of things that they watched at home, from my understanding, to where that type of behavior was prevalent in whatever they were watching. So of course, when the boy is seeing that, he's thinking it's okay because whatever the men are doing and whatever his mom is watching, these are adult themed things, by the way. She's not correcting him and saying, you see what that man did? You don't do that to women. You don't grab women there without their permission, or you're too young to be grabbing women in that. And when you get older, when you get that man's age, you're still going to need consent from that woman in order to grab her like that or grab her there. You know what I'm saying? I highly doubt those conversations are happening at home. So you got to have those conversations. And again, this is what you sign up for when you are an educator. But my problem is when you do that and then the child goes home, because they don't go home to you. They go home to their parent who isn't. All the lessons you're teaching them about, if you are going to teach them about being a decent individual in society, all that stuff is being contrasted once they go home. Once the clock hits 3 o'clock, 2:30, 4 o'clock, whatever the time is, and that bell rings, they get on that bus, they get in their parents' car, however they get home. Once that time happens, everything that you could be teaching that child for the year or for the day, for the week, for the month, can just go by the wayside, because at home they're being taught the total opposite. They're being raised the total opposite. And these things is very frustrating, because it's like, I don't get paid enough to deal with this shit. Also, there's very little protections, like I said, not just physical protections, because it's not like the female teachers can pop these boys or pop a student in their face for grabbing them. There's very little protections. One of the last videos I saw, again, if I could find these clips, I will share them throughout this video. I know it's been an hour long. I'm about to wrap up the story here. But one of the last video clips I saw was a woman who was crying once again because she was being sexually harassed by students, and she could not do anything about it. She would go to the parents, and the parents would either, I don't believe you, or I will do something about it, and nothing changes. She would obviously go to the principal and go to the proper channels and people, and what these teachers, especially the women, are told when they're in situations. And guys has been sexually harassed too. I've been at a school where there's a female student who verbally would accost male teachers. She did not do that to me because she hated my guts, which was one of the great things about being hated. When you are hated by students, especially creepy students, they just curse you out. They don't do any of that sexual harassment. So there's a verbal abuse, but it's more so of get the fuck out of my face, I hate you type of verbal abuse. I will take that any day rather than some of the comments I've heard both male and female staff members get when they're sexually harassed. Yikes. But anyways, this teacher once again was detailing how she was crying because, again, she's like, she had to and this situation went viral. She made a song telling her students like the naughty places of where you don't touch someone. And I forget how the song goes, but it's like, don't touch me here, there, and like, no, no, no. And I'm like, it's fucking sad that we gotta do shit like that. I wasn't making songs. I'm being real. I was yelling at people. that was a moment to where, and that's maybe it's the man in me where it's like, I'm not gonna try to make this seem so soft and like a teachable moment. My teachable moment was like, no nigga, you're not doing that. I didn't use that language, but it was like, you're not fucking doing that, not on my watch. And if another teacher come to me and say so and so did this, we gonna have a conversation. And it's not a conversation, it's a scolding. You gonna sit and take this scolding, and then we gonna talk to your mom again, where she's gonna pretend like she don't know what the fuck I'm saying. It ain't nothing gonna happen, but this is the only way I feel as though that's going to this is the only course of action I know what to take. Because if I do nothing about it, I'm gonna feel horrible. That you have people coming up to me, damn near in tears, saying, I just been sexually harassed by your student, by the way. Because it seems because now it's like, oh shit, none of them thought that I was doing shit. Thankfully, none of them thought I was teaching this dude to go around and grab women by the pussy and all this other shit. None of them were blaming me, but it was definitely a situation to where, like, yeah, I was his one-to-one aide. This wasn't even my last official time. This is, again, one of the worst experiences I've had to deal with as an educator. But yeah, there were moments where, again, if I was on my break, which I had at this school, I think I had an hour. Sometimes the teacher would give me I had a half hour. Sometimes the teacher would give me an hour because she was cool like that, right? The main teacher, right? The lead teacher would sometimes give me an hour because she was cool like that. Shout out to her. And I hope she's doing well, because she was the one that was getting sexually harassed by this student a lot. And it becomes a problem because once the other students saw that he did it, they thought that it was appropriate for them to do it. It was a girl in the classroom who thought it was okay to start sexually harassing this female teacher, right? It got to the point where I had to yell at the girl. The girl was different. Once I told her stop and had to get on her about it, yeah, she did the girl thing where she cried. But I think that scolding taught her not to do it. I think so, because I did hear there was another situation where she did grab another teacher's breasts. Not under my watch, but again, they would come to me about this because, again, these teachers felt powerless as well. And it's like, the only individual that's A, gonna listen to me, and B, at least try to do something about it, is this other teacher. So it's like, hey, all he can do is try to talk to the mom and curse these students out. You know what I'm saying? Or give them a scolding is what it is, right? So it's situations like that where I see it happening all over the country. And I'm not in those schools again, so I can't go and tell those students, and be a listening ear to those teachers who want to vent about being sexually harassed. Unless they have someone like me within those schools, they don't have someone that they can go to. So they got to make up songs. They got to get on TikTok and bawl their eyes out. They have to get on social media and tell somebody, right? They have to quit to avoid this. Because I've had teachers who never gotten sexually assaulted a day in their life until they became an educator. One would think the one place a woman would be safe from that, a man or a woman would be safe from that, is within a school where there are so many eyes around, there are so many people around. Yeah, cameras too, if your school is all cameraed out. There's so many eyes and people around. One would think that they have a higher chance of being sexually assaulted outside of the school. But nah, that wasn't the case for many of the teachers. Many of them, their first and multiple experiences with being sexually assaulted was when they started teaching. And the thing that I hate, again, I hate that it happened to them. I hate witnessing it. I hate having to. I don't like yelling in general, right? But I hate having to yell and to students. I hate having to do the job of a parent. I hate having to talk to somebody who doesn't want to solve the problem, because again, a lot of these parents, especially these new age parents, only became parents because they wanted the tax benefits, the financial benefits of what it is to be a parent, but don't want the responsibilities, don't want the moral or just all the other responsibilities that may come with being a parent, just the financial, you know, or even the social, I guess, beneficial eye. Oh, you're a parent, so you're responsible. Get the fuck out of here. Anyways, it's situations like that and other situations I've dealt with where students were just straight up menaces, and again, their parents really were their enablers. That's the fucking word that I wanted to say earlier. And all right, editor me here, and I will be remiss to not mention this other experience that I've had in regards to what I'm talking about with the sexual assault that has happened within the schools that I've worked at. The last school that I was at, they were telling me, and again, this is in the area of working with special ed students, but as I've stated in the video, I don't think that's an excuse, because they might have some type of development issues there that can be a reason as to why they believe that behavior is, okay, especially again if they have parents and teachers coddling them and not necessarily correcting them when they do that act, or they're not correcting them every time they do the act, right? I can see why there's something, that can be a hindrance in their judgment on that. But my last situation, like I said, the last school I was in, they made it seem as though that it was this odd way of them. Oh, I felt like they oddly were trying to normalize. And it was just one student. Again, it wasn't multiple ones, but it was one student who every time they got the chance, whether you were like either bent over reading to another student or writing or whatever the case is, they said this student would just go around and again slap the butts, slap the behinds of teachers, and I was just like, even if you weren't like bent over or whatever, right? If you were just standing around and it was out there, I guess, right? And that student just wanted to slap it, they would slap it, you know what I'm saying? And my thing is this, that behavior, no matter who the I guess the mental state of the individual, is not okay. It's not okay. If you're not a consenting adult with that other consenting adult, and y'all don't have that rapport to where it's okay for that other consenting adult to just slap your butt or grab you in places, that behavior is not okay. I don't care if you're a damn kid. I don't care if you have developmental issues. Again, that behavior is not okay. And I feel as though the reason why this goes on within, again, the last school I was at, the school prior to that, when I was detailing the situation of the sexual harassment from the one student, or just schools all over the I was about to say universe, but all over the nation, is because you have, again, teachers are being told that we have to correct our behavior. And it's like, it's the same mentality of telling a girl, a young girl, a teenage girl, or a young woman, or a woman in general, that, well, if you don't want to get raped, don't dress that way. That is literally the same vibe that
we meaning, as a society, we not meaning me, because I don't go around saying dumb stuff like that, but we as, a society, and especially within the education world, we are telling teachers, well, don't bend over, or don't wear, pants that's going to be revealing, or, watch where you're standing. Like, all these things are being placed on the teacher, and I don't hear, rarely heard during my time, what to do, or what to say to said student when they sexually harass you. Now, again, I've seen this happen to female teachers. I've seen it happen to male teachers as well. None of it is okay. None of it is okay. And more and more teachers, I feel like a lot of people, like, within this discussion about why people are quitting their jobs as educators, they're not necessarily bringing that up. Now, they're probably not bringing it up because it's not their experience to bring up. Obviously, they haven't seen it, they haven't experienced it themselves, and therefore they're not bringing it up. That could be it. But I also think it's because people are too afraid to bring it up. Just like how victims of rape and sexual assault, the vast majority of these situations go unreported because people are afraid of the backlash that, or being gaslit into believing that they are the reason as to why what happened to them happened to them. The same situation is happening within our schools all over the country. And that's a problem. Nobody is bringing it up. So, yeah, this last place that I was at, I was warned that that student does things like that, right? By multiple teachers, multiple women. They said, just watch out. He does this. And they said that it's not just to female staff member. It's to anybody. He'll just slap your behind, right? I never saw him do it, but because I never saw him do it doesn't mean that I didn't believe it. My thing was this: I didn't just play it off, because the way they told it to me, especially, I didn't like it. I didn't like their tone. Maybe it was a nervous laugh, but they were like giggling and laughing about it like it was okay. So that was kind of weird on my end too. Like, it was like, do y'all like getting spanked by this little boy? And y'all are teachers? And even if you weren't teachers, you're grown-ass women. Do you like getting spanked by this little boy? Is your sex life at home that deprived, but that a little boy touching your behind is turning you the fuck on? That was red flag number one. And weird shit like that, my mind goes to, why are you playing this off as it's not a big deal? That's number one. Number two, again, even if it's not that, if they're not some secret pedophiles, it's a situation of them, not, trying to for whatever reason, make this situation, or make that news, that information, seem as bad as it, or seem as worse as it is. That's a bad situation. If he were to do that to students his age, we would see the problem in that. Because here's the thing, I've been at schools again where sexual assault, things of that nature, sexual activity was happening between the students, and that was nipped in the bud. I've never been in a situation I've never been in a school to where, not just as a student growing up, but as an adult within these schools. I've never seen a situation where a girl said I was sexually violated and that shit wasn't taken seriously. So kudos on the education system there. I'm not saying every school is perfect, but kudos on the education system there. At least up here in Massachusetts, to where, I've seen situations where girls were sexually assaulted or stuff happened to them and they felt uncomfortable. They spoke out against it and situations was handled appropriately. But whenever teachers, grown women, try to exercise that same thing, like, what message are you sending to these little girls when they are seeing their older teachers, their female teachers, getting sexually harassed? And they're going out and they're telling the proper channels, as I've mentioned, that, hey, I'm being sexually harassed, and then nothing is happening. What message do you think that sends to the little girls and the little boys as well, who might be, seeing the men who are getting sexually harassed? As I've stated, I've seen it happen to a man, or I've been told it happened to a man, where, there was a female student that would say lewd things to one of the staff members. It was the electrician at one school that I worked at. And this little ass girl would always ask him about his erections, how hard it would get, how long he would last, and how big is his dick. Crazy things like that. Or could she see his, what would make him hard, and could she see it, crazy stuff like that. I've had, little girls try me in ways, and that was like trying to, that R. Kelly would fall for, but I was like, I see what the fuck you doing, you stop that shit. So it's like, but again, you go as a male or female, you go and you tell people what's happening, and no one takes you seriously, or all they say is, the best they can offer you is to go speak to a fucking school counselor, or speak to, or they give you a counseling session of some sort where you could speak to some third-party counselor about the situation. And it's like, I want this student out of here. I want this student to be punished for what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Free counseling is cool, I guess. It's all right. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, but that student is still here. What is that student being told? Why is it, again, the onus all on the staff member? They gotta watch what they wear, watch how they stand, and watch how they position themselves when they're either picking up stuff on the ground, or picking up stuff on the table, placing things on the table, picking up desk, switching, like their entire body, like, you got to switch up how you maneuver around a room, especially around a student, or if there's a group of students, because no one wants to tell these students, no one wants to tell these creeps not to be there, like, this stuff is not okay. So yeah, like, I wanted to mention that aspect to where the schools are failing. I say all this just to say the schools are the ones failing the teachers. And more people are, they're leaving. And this isn't the only example of the schools failing the teachers, but I think this is one of the examples that really need to be highlighted, where the schools are failing the teachers. Staff aren't feeling safe going to these schools. And we're not talking about on some school shooting type stuff. What about the school? Like, all that's important, yeah, but what about the safety of the teachers and students when it comes to sexual harassment? As I noted earlier, when it comes to this, taking sexual harassment seriously, when it's student on student, I've seen schools do a great job at that. I've never seen a school to where they did a horrible job at it at all. When it comes to sexual harassment of a staff member and a student, I've never seen it at the schools that I worked at, but growing up in, apparently this was a false allegation, so I won't even mention that, but I have seen news reports all over the nation of teachers going to jail, going to prison because of their inappropriate behavior toward a minor. But when it's inappropriate behavior from a minor to a teacher, I've seen nothing but terrible responses. Firsthand and secondhand, nothing but terrible responses that I feel that, again, educators is to one of the reasons why people are like, I'm not going to deal with this mess. Or how long do they expect me to want to deal with this mess until something actually happens? Meaning until this student is actually, punished for their behavior. So that's what I have to say about that. Let's continue on with the rest of the video, if I don't put this at the very end.
That's the word I want to use. Enablers. a big part as to why and I want to say this is the majority of the reason why I decided not to do the whole traditional teaching thing anymore, is there are way too many enablers happening. Again, teachers, I mean, I keep saying teachers when I really want to say is parents. Not all the time, but the parents are enabled. Their behavior is enabled as well. At this same school, by the way, all right? And I'm not even going to say the name of the school, because when I'm ashamed that they named it after this. Only hint I'm going to give you, and you're probably going to guess on your first guess, but the only hint I'm going to give you is it's named after a prominent civil rights activist. That's the only hint I'm going to give you. You probably guessed it correctly on the first guess. Kudos to you for knowing Black history during Black History Month. But in all seriousness, at this same school, there was a mother who would gleefully come up to the school and complain and want to start fights. I mean, literally start fights with both female and males. She didn't give a fuck. It depended on who it was. Again, the dude that that had the position before, he said, "You're gonna run into her." Thankfully, I didn't. But there was a moment where she, I guess, was coming to, she would barge into the school too. And again, nothing would happen. Like, she would step on school grounds and she would just walk up in there, just barge in, enforce her will. There was a moment where she did come onto the floor that I worked on. And once it was noticed by another teacher that she was in the building, I don't know if she was coming to my room. All I know is, and I didn't interact with her child at all. So I don't, again, but you didn't even need to have her students. I mean, her children. Teachers dreaded once they found out that they had her students. She had a daughter and a son, right? She would do this thing where she would claim that she is vegan, but then the students, if you were to ask them, they'll be like, if you were to like ask them what they had for dinner, they'd be like, "We had chicken nuggets." And it wasn't vegan chicken nuggets. We talking about the chicken nuggets, or the lab-made chicken nuggets, right? We had chicken nuggets, or they had some type of meat, right? Or some type of poultry, some type of meat. They had that for dinner, but then she would demand that she would come up to the school claiming, y'all feed my children this stuff. They don't eat that stuff. They because she would then ask her kids, what did y'all have for lunch today? Let's just say it was Salisbury steak, mashed potatoes, and some corn, right? She would be upset at the fact that Salisbury steak was on the menu and her kids ate it. But then it's like, again, you're claiming you're a vegan, or you're feeding your kids on the vegan diet. And I don't think these kids are lying. I highly doubt they're lying. One of the kids, like the son, one of his good friends was in my classroom. I would even ask the friend at times and be like, "Did so-and-so tell you what he ate for dinner?" He'd be like, "Yeah, they had something that wasn't vegan," essentially, right? So I was like, really? This woman essentially just wants to pick fights because she's a bored, single, bitter mom. I'm just going to say it. Because she's bored. And again, she is being enabled. That's the word I wanted to use. She's being enabled. And when I say being enabled, I mean no one is actually doing anything about it. I think there was one time, I believe, long before I started at this school, where apparently someone did call the cops. But nothing happened. She played the victim per usual. She played the victim. The cops didn't want to deal with this shit. The cop was just like, how about just everybody go home? And that's what happened. She was so fucking bold that she showed up the next day threatening people to call the cops, and threatening whoever were to call the cops, or whoever did call the cops, that she was going to beat their ass. So she would go around threatening motherfuckers, lying, claiming you fed my kid a vegan diet, a non-vegan diet. And then when the kid only ate, the corn or the carrots or the whatever, right? Oh, y'all didn't feed my baby. What was that about? She would then come up to I am dead serious when I say that these are the types of parents that are out here raising these fucking children. And I don't mean to cuss at the kids, because although, again, I did name the situation to where I saw the sexual harassment with that one student, some other students, and plethora of other students, alarming situation. That was the most sexual harassment situations I've ever seen in my fucking life. And I know it's harsher for the individuals who've gone through it, but it's still a terrible thing to see. Especially if you're seeing it happening to someone that you work close with. Like, it's a terrible thing to see, because if it was a grown man who did shit like that, I can easily just beat his ass. I can't react that way when it comes to a fucking kid. Now, if that kid grows up, you know what I'm saying, and I see him doing that, and I have the strength, oh yeah, I don't care how it makes me look. Oh yeah, all them years of you getting away, you still ain't learned from the last time when I cursed your ass out when you was 7. You gonna fucking learn today. The problem is you ain't never got your ass kicked for doing this shit, and now you doing it as a grown man, and now you need your ass kicked. But in all seriousness though, you had to deal with parents who were worse than their children. Coming up to schools looking for fights, looking for reasons to pick fights. It's like modern teaching nowadays is not, the trouble is not worth it, especially for the shit pay that you get as an educator. And I know I mentioned this earlier. I said I was going to bring up the aspect of them trying to, use they try to guilt you into accepting less, essentially, because it's like, what about the students? What about the parents? You shouldn't be going into teaching if you really want, a lot of money. Using that last line especially, first of all, that's grounds for abuse. Like, I think that is just a clear indication that you're just trying to abuse people and use people. And don't slide with me, dog. Like, you're not going to use me. You're not going to try to get me to not value or not protect myself or not speak up for myself. Because, if you wanted money, you should have become a doctor. You should have... Like, nah, nigga. That doesn't mean simply because... a teacher is a teacher. That doesn't mean that they should deal with the disrespect. None of the women that got their breasts and butts and other body parts grabbed up on, no amount of money, even if they were getting paid a lot of money, no amount of money is okay for that behavior. But most definitely trying to tell a woman or anybody, again, who was sexually harassed, because again, I saw men who were both verbally and physically harassed, right? Telling the teacher that they should not take things like that into account when deciding whether they want to continue education or not, because think about the children. Yeah, whenever this person who's been sexually harassed is thinking about the children, their thoughts, unfortunately, is probably the time where they got their breast or buttocks grabbed on roughly by this student, or the time they got spat on or hit by this student, the time a student, they caught a student spitting in their water bottle or spitting in their cup of coffee, right? Or the time that when you think about the students, when you say some goof ass shit like that, there are going to be people that are traumatized by situations that these students have made. So now you're telling these people they gotta be forced to deal with this shit. And the crazy thing is, like I said, and I kept reiterating here, I believe, these fucking parents don't even want to deal with their children. But we as educators gotta be gleefully and wanting to deal with the BS. Now, I don't want to paint every educator as, someone who feels the way that I do. I think the majority of educators don't feel like, even if they probably have gone through the stuff that I've gone through and seen the things that I've seen, they probably still enjoy doing what they do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But me, again, I didn't think any of those troubles, whether it be, again, dealing with parents who didn't want to cooperate at all, seeing or even dealing, because I did have dealings with unruly parents, not at this school that I described, but another place that I was at, because I used to do after school work as well, and that's where I bounced around a lot, was at these after school facilities where it's not only students that I'm working with from the school that I worked at, but other schools as well. And parents, no matter where they know you or not, can be unruly. They can be kind and very much understanding, but again, they can be unruly as well. And then there's the obvious, the racism. You have the Karens out there who think they can talk to you anyway. Me being a male teacher, you have the males in the lives of these students who feel away, especially if they're a father who's not necessarily at home but does have visitation rights. And their child is someone who speaks highly positive of you as a male influence in their life. These men start to get to feeling jealous. And even if the student doesn't necessarily express that, they still, like, dad is always going to be dad, and, Mr. Ernest is always going to be Mr. Ernest, you know what I'm saying? And dad is still, to that child, is on a higher echelon than I am. Dad is still going to feel a way because dad is insecure and dad thinks that I'm trying to take his place as dad, and it's like, no, I'm not trying to take his place. I'm just doing my damn job. You know what I'm saying? You're still, if you knew how much your son or your daughter spoke about you, how highly they spoke about you, or they would mention you from time to time, or they drew that picture that said, I love my dad, or they drew a picture of you, then you probably wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you paid attention to your child too, you probably would notice how much they adored you, and you wouldn't feel the need to try to fight me or try to pick fights with me. This wasn't all the time, but again, I've dealt with situations like this, and again, the racism aspect, because people see how I look and all this other stuff. People have preconceived notions, and they're like, I don't want my child being taught by someone who looks like that. People think that teachers nowadays in 2026 especially are supposed to dress like Miss Frizzle or, dress like, one of the teachers did in the show Arthur, right? Dress like a nun, Now, I'm not saying be extra revealing, but again, I dressed professionally. I wasn't suited and booted every damn day, suit and tie, but I dressed professionally. But it didn't matter when you have dreadlocks. It didn't matter when you didn't lighten your voice at all around the people. Like, no, I still spoke in a tone that I spoke in. My voice was my voice. When you have a deep voice and you're a black man, of course you're gonna be seen as a threat. You know what I'm saying? Like, people feel away. So all those quote unquote microaggressions, I hate that term, but that is the term, but all those microaggressions compile to just the disrespect from students and teachers. I mean, well, not necessarily a lot of teachers, but parents mainly. Yeah, teaching nowadays, like I said, like back in the day when I first started teaching, the students were bad, but they weren't sexually harassing teachers type bad. Now, yeah, there were moments where they were sexually harassing each other, and that's still not good. But it's like I can talk to them and tell them why it was bad, and it would never happen again. Or if it did happen again, we actually got to do something about it and say, hey, this student is no longer allowed in this school. Nowadays, a student continues to do that, not even to or just with other students, but to staff, because no punishment is being put out. Because we don't want to seem racist, or, well, if we put out a punishment, then that kid is not going to know, he's not going to have any school to go to if we expel them for the sixth time that they sexually harassed this one teacher or multiple teachers for the year, or the sixth time just for this fucking month, and we're only in random month of the school year. Let's just say November, right? We're only in November and this kid's already harassed six teachers. It's only November. We have until June. 6 teachers already have been sexually assaulted by this person, and nothing is being done. And my thing is, the system is set up now to where teachers can get fired for even speaking up about this. Yeah, there are unions to protect them, no doubt, but teachers face more punishment for trying to do the right thing than the people who are doing the wrong should face the punishment. People being the students who are doing wrong and their parents are doing wrong. There are no punishments for those people at all. Again, not in the public school sector that I was a part of. There are no punishments. It might be a different story for private schools. Maybe private schools still operate on this. We can not teachers, but students, right? We can still slap their wrists with 2x4s and shit, right? Yardsticks and all that, right? Abusing kids is not funny, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm a dark humorist at times. But maybe they still operate on that. Or maybe you're a private school teacher or a former private school teacher, and you can identify with some of the stuff that I've dealt with within the public school sector. But there's no safeguard for teachers, and there's all the safeguards for the students and their unruly parents. And I think they all know that, and that's why they behave the way that they do. It is not worth going through that bullshit. You can call me greedy, but the money was definitely not worth it, especially if you're only getting paid once or twice a month. And even if you were in one of the paraprofessional positions that got paid weekly or bi-weekly, the money still wasn't worth it. Like, no amount of money is worth the amount of disrespect that educators today have to endure, whether it's physical or the verbal disrespect. So I said, fuck it. It's not worth it. I'm out. It's not worth my physical safety. It's not worth my mental well-being. It's definitely not worth my financial well-being as well. I've had all 3 threatened at some point in time within my 15 years of being an educator. And although I do love the moments, the positive moments, and I don't regret, by the way, making the decision to be an educator. I don't regret it at all. But if you thought I was going to spend another 15 years doing this, nah. Or at least not on this magnitude. Again, like I said at the very beginning of this, or sometime toward the beginning of this long video, I still believe that I'm an educator, but just not in the traditional sense, not in the sense that you might be thinking of. So, yeah, that's my thoughts, and that's why I believe teachers are quitting. That's my story. If you are someone who can relate to this, I would love to know your story down below. We can all come together as educators, former educators, whatever you want to call yourself, and have a safe space in the comment section below and talk about this stuff. This is probably going to be one of the very few videos of mine where I am very much open to have a conversation with people in the comment section below. So feel free to leave your comments, because I will read and will comment them, comment back as well. If you have dealt with the various issues, especially like the sexual assault, I pray things get better for you, whether you're still dealing with it now and you're getting out of school that's not doing shit about it, because they don't want to seem they don't want a bad rep for whatever reason, whatever reason, they're not doing anything about it. Again, I pray that you find peace. I pray that you get the safety you deserve. And I pray that shit stops. And again, if I was there with you, that kid would have gotten cursed out. You may not have liked to see me when I'm angry. I don't like seeing me when I'm angry. The Hulk doesn't like seeing me when I'm angry. But I can't sit by and let shit like that slide. I just can't. That's just what it was.